Good.
Hey,
That's White Orchid, right?
Yeah.
We got Yintan.
Hey up.
And hey, Reload made it.
Yeah, I'm sitting.
oh shit, who the fuck let him in? Jesus.
And Sutonia.
We've got
Hey,
like the UK
umbrellas.
crew of them.
Let's hear your voice, Sutonia. Well, everybody knows who you sound like. You sound just like Reload.
Yeah, I'm right. The umbrella. I don't know what you're talking about.
Right, Load. We also have Pro God.
Oh,
And
sup? I'm wrong push to talk. Sorry.
there you go. And Tiberius Stargazer.
Hey.
So this is we're just gonna do a quick little round table because we have some former CSM in here. Well, I shouldn't call Yintan former yet, but
Former after I lose this upcoming election because no one votes.
right. What do you CSM guys want to know from a veteran like Pro God?
What?
I want them to ask you, what was it like when you were on CSM?
The first I was on 2. I was on 8 and 9. 8 was pretty great to put a little rhyme in there, but 8 was awesome. 9 was rough. That's when freaking Scion made his power play halfway through it and split the CSM in half.
What was his power
What
play?
was this?
And that whole thing. I mean, it's pretty public now. I don't want to rehash it too hard.
Rehash it.
Rehash it for us
I mean,
retards
it,
who don't pay
it was so
attention.
bad. CCP had to make the rule just to ban him from running. So,
So they did ban him.
oh come on, yeah,
I thought so too. It's a pretty specific rule.
yeah. I mean, it was it was pretty rough. The second summit that year was pretty much ruined. We didn't really do anything useful. So,
I heard you broke into 2 camps and where there was like 2 groups of people.
yeah, it was pretty much split down the middle. It kind of sucked.
What a bummer. I'm going to include one more person, and that is Barguest. Barguest Ghost? I always say that.
Hard Ghost, I assume.
Yeah, let me unmute him. There you go,
Not to
buddy.
be confused with an OP Modest Legion ship.
Can you
Thanks,
talk?
Legion.
I unmuted you. Can you talk? Can you unmute yourself? Stop hitting yourself.
You need to use push to talk. This channel was locked at push to talk,
Let
dude.
me give him guest status, and that'll change things up for him. There you go. Now,
Can you hear me?
yeah,
There
we
we
can.
go.
So we're talking to Pro God about what it was like being a CSM member, and so far we've just gotten to drama. But what was it actually like, being in Iceland?
Oh, Iceland's great. I mean, if anyone's been to FanFest, it's pretty good. The summits are fun, although I've heard they've changed them up a little bit now. But you get to meet with all the devs. You actually get quite a lot of leeway as far as the whole meetings, telling them what you feel. They take it in. People have the idea that that CCP doesn't listen to CSM, but I think all these people here can attest that that's pretty false. CCP takes that commentary very seriously.
They take it on board, they just don't always agree with you.
Well, of course not. What?
Yeah.
I mean,
Do how many
I don't
guys?
always agree with you.
How many guys?
course, no.
How many guys arrive at CSM, give their spiel, and then CCP is like, yeah, that's why this is why that won't work, and they basically kind of defeat people's agendas that come with agendas.
I'm sure that's changed. I feel like over the years, people have gotten over the idea that you're running to change something in the CSM. I think the reality that it's a focus group of knowledgeable players is kind of set in at this point.
So they come more prepared than they used to.
Yeah, like I mean, you're a sounding board. You're for ideas. You get to participate in killing some really bad ideas, and you get to influence some of the things they're working on. And occasionally, you can actually offer up ideas that make it in the game. It all depends on how well you can work with the devs, if you're going to be an asshole about it or not. I mean, pretty much anyone who goes there with the idea that they're going to strong arm CCP into something, I mean, that's ridiculous. But it's been tried before. Yeah, it's never going to work. I don't know why anyone would think that would work, but it's I think the CSM has matured since I've been on it, at least. I've heard great stories about you guys this year. So
The Dream Team CSM.
yeah, no, I've heard a lot of good things.
Yeah, I've said before why I think that was. It's nothing to do with just the people who came on. It's more to do with the fact that everyone had a plan for what they were going to do to make the CSM better.
Well, I heard
And
that it was...
that everyone didn't want the fucking CSM to die because there was a very real fear at the time of the CSM 11 elections that this would be the last CSM.
Yeah, I heard everybody was an adult in the room.
I mean, certainly.
Well, I mean,
when you,
That's interesting. Funny how that
certainly when you
works.
look at like CSM 10 and the cloud that kind of dragged around with it for the last half of its term, like the opinion and enthusiasm for the CSM was in the toilet. Like it just seems that developers weren't talking to the CSM didn't want to talk to any of the developers, nobody was talking to the community, and it was just a great big mess.
we saw that happen pretty often in the first summit, pretty visibly in the first summit, where when we came in, everyone was very, very apprehensive to talk to us. You're just looking at people's body language. They were very stern. They seemed like they were expecting a fight. But as CSM, as the first summit went on, it got a lot better. People realized that we were going to attack them.
I mean, I'm just going to cut in here. Like, this will be the first one I've witnessed while playing Eve. And during it, CSM 11, so much outwards facing. CSM 10, the only thing I'd ever heard about it was, oh, someone's leaked something, someone's broke NDA, this person's been kicked off. CSM 9, I'd never even heard anything from.
Sorry, I was
CSM 9?
I was coughing there. Go ahead.
I mean, CSM 9. Were you referring to CSM 9 that you didn't hear anything from?
Yeah, he's referring to CSM 9.
I mean, CSM 9 didn't do anything, so.
No, but that's what I mean. I mean,
Well played.
even if there was something, I didn't hear it. It might have just been the fact it was my first year playing, but that's how it at least come across. This one's definitely been more community focused.
What a nice
Thanks
voice
for
you
shilling
have.
for me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I think
Checks in the mailbag.
I think the CSM has been the best one. Yeah.
Best one in a while, I would say, from what I've
I'd say
seen.
CSM 6 is one that I personally looked up to.
I mean,
feel like that was a very good one.
Looking from the outside in, it definitely, for me has been a good CSM. Obviously, you don't know what goes on behind CCP's doors and in the summits and meetings and such, but from an outsider looking in.
I mean, in my opinion, you just need to remember that this is a video game. CCP is a
Interview
medium-sized
with,
company with a bunch of really motivated people working on a video game. And we're video game players who have a slightly different perspective than they do, and we all just want a slightly better product that we get more enjoyment out of. And if you go in there realizing that we're just trying to work on this for a little bit, make it a little better, it's not the end of the world if
something
shit
happens.
doesn't go in, or if shit doesn't get changed, or if your opinion doesn't necessarily get heard on a few things. You have a much better experience, and you get a shit ton more done when you're willing to work with the devs like that. I mean, when you develop good relationships with the devs and see things from their perspective and not just your own, you'd be shocked at how much more you can get done.
Yeah, I mean, Yin will probably know, because I think we've had this discussion between some of us in Provi, but there was something said and a couple of us turned around and kind of responded to someone with, it's not about being hostile to each other or CCP, it's about making compromises and trying to find the right thing that suits as many people as possible.
That's pretty true.
Probably stole it from you.
Let me ask you guys a question you all can answer. Again, it's not formal. It's just a discussion, so you guys can interrupt like you've been doing. But has force projection been solved?
I'd say so. Like, to a degree. We're always going to have problems where the...
force projection? Yeah. That's all I can say on that, I think.
I think it's pretty. I think it's in a good place right now.
Yeah, the problem for me on force projection right now is that force projection nerfs have come at the cost of like player like enjoyment. That's not ideal, but I don't know how you could make it better right now. I mean, like I could talk about it for a while and probably think on it, but it's not a high priority in my opinion.
By the way, Vince just joined us. Not Vince Draken, but Vincent.
Yeah, good luck with that.
The German Vincent. We'll just go with that.
Eneticum?
Hey, someone said it.
Eunuch.
What do you mean good luck with that? Getting Vince to interview?
No, I said eunuch. I was making a joke
No.
about how his name looks like.
Oh.
Don't
I was making a joke about pronouncing Vincent's other name.
Yeah.
I'm not going to try it.
So you guys think that the maneuvers that, Anectium. Anyway, you think that force projection kind of got worked out with Phoebe, since Phoebe?
Worked out that it's a better state, not that it's in a perfect state.
Yeah.
It could do with like some iteration, specifically on like the amount of jump fatigue, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
From my perspective, as kind of I've said before, it solved the problem of rapidly deploying or rapidly responding to, whatever it might be. But the cost that Yintan was talking about is that, man, is it a pain to move when you're even if you're doing it slowly, it's a pain. It really is quite horrible to do. I've known a few people that just gave up on their characters, and a few still of that group who just said, balls to it, I can't be bothered with this anymore.
Yeah, moving is a pain. The idea with moving being a pain is, in theory, it would eventually force more local conflicts. But theory
that's
doesn't
not
always
gonna
work out in
happen
practice.
just due to the current like capital meta and stuff like that.
Yeah, the
Like the
capital
big dog's
meta
always
makes it
going to
rough.
win. You want to give a way for the small dog to move away.
Well, if you can't think if you give away for the small dog to move away, you give away for the big dog to follow him. I mean, that's
I
always
know.
been the problem with this stuff. Like, it doesn't just work in a vacuum. Any change you make, the big groups can use it too.
Yeah,
So
very true.
That is, unless you put some hard limit on somehow blocking the big group using it as effectively.
Which is bullshit and not even.
which is
So
Yeah.
which is also A, bullshit, and B, impossible. So
Well, the one that I did hear as a suggestion was on the Rorquals, as in limiting one panic on grid at a time.
Yeah, but
That's
how do
the
you,
only
that
time I've
doesn't-
heard it, though.
Whoa, that would be very interesting, and also would not solve the main issues anyway.
How they changed Rorquals is they did it the wrong way. Instead of them just nerfing yield, they should nerf the actual colossal asteroid clusters instead.
Yeah, I think we've all talked about that. Like, the problem is how do you give, like, because right now the ADMs are basically built around having infinite ore. If you don't mine shitloads of anoms, you will not be able to get the industry index up to 5, and that's kind of important. There's a balance there.
About the Rockwells, like Rockwells mine with their drones, right? And the drones, as far as I've heard, are not that fast, right?
they're really expensive and really easy to kill. We had a lot of success. I think we killed like 30 billion in excavators before we left Vale.
And they're going to make kill metals as well soon, I think they said.
Yeah.
Yeah. The
That's
problem
cool.
is, like, no one has the time to do that shit, right? So
No, what I wanted to say is, instead of like nerfing the yield or reducing the amount of ore in the colossal belt, you can just spread out the asteroids way more, so the drones take way longer to mine.
good. And then you open up the option of killing the excavators, which is something you actually can do. And if you feel like you can't kill the Rorqual after it panics, which in most cases you can't.
And at the same time, barges and exhumers can just fit a prop mod just to get there quicker, if so needed. So the solo person isn't as bad.
Isn't there a links of isn't there a link that extends like the laser range on?
Yeah. I don't think that spreading out the asteroids would affect Barges that much, because they don't have to like move back and forth between a point and the asteroid. Their lasers have the range, but for the Rockwells, the drones have to fly from the Rockwell to the asteroid and back, and when they are not that fast, it takes longer to mine.
That said,
at the end of the day, the reason why it was done that way is, in my opinion, that they were very, very worried about the immediate impacts it was going to have on the market, and they wanted to shut it down with a quick and easy solution.
Yeah.
And sorry, just to cut in again. That said, moving them apart is only going to hinder the small groups, not the big ones that can put 50 odd rock walls on and just put each next to an asteroid. They can just mine one asteroid each and then move somewhere else. The small group will have to take that time to move their drones from one to another.
Well, it's never been at a strategic level anyway. That's not what we're talking about. It's simply just the fact that too many minerals are getting into the market.
Oh yeah, no, sorry. I was just going back to the whole thing about the benefiting large groups as well as small ones. In this case, it's hindering small groups, benefiting large ones.
Yeah, which is something you never really want to do, because the game already has benefits for large groups. Just in the fact that a lot of things either scale linearly or exponentially.
All right, let me throw in another question about SOV system. You guys happy with it, or does it suck? Seems to be two camps on this.
Fucking blows ass.
I probably have a different perspective to other people coming from LowSec, but
all right, I gotta go, guys. I apologize.
Thanks for
Okay,
guys. See you later.
I will answer for ProGod, because he actually does. He does think that the current system is better than most people say it is, and he has some pretty good reasoning for it. I just don't agree with him.
So you agree with what he says, but not the reasoning for why he says it. Okay, cool.
I think I agree with like his reasoning behind why he thinks it's good, and I think that is valuable. I think he just underestimates how fucking obnoxious some other aspects of it are.
I gotcha. I understand.
But what do you guys
there's
think?
a waiting system there.
What I was going to say, what ideally, like I have in my head, and I know, people say CSM is not, a place where you just come in, tell everyone your ideas, tell them it's amazing, and walk out again. But I would really like a little bit more consistency across Eve in general, and I think the more we go on, the less consistent we're getting. So you see, like how POSs used to work, we've moved away from that mechanic into how Citadels work with their timers, and they are all completely different to how SOV works and to how POSs work. What I'd really like is for all structures to follow the same pattern with regards to how their timers work, introduce a new type of structure, a new type of citadel that replaces the TCU and replaces a separate type to replace the iHubs that you can manage your upgrades through. And those structures, whether you entosis them or whether you attack them, I don't know, whichever one works out, but that they follow the same pattern as everywhere else.
Yeah, I think a lot of people would agree that a damage cap for like structures would make damage cap for the nodes as opposed to entosis would make SOV warfare a lot better, a lot more healthy.
But you should point out though that structures now look like ships. They're fit like ships. Their hierarchy of giving them powers fits like ships. It didn't before. So, and the pause is going away, so that's kind of on its way out. So things are kind of coming together as far as intuition and the interface.
Also, they're mostly using the same code. The Citadel kind of code base is the basis of a lot of new things.
Yeah, I was more talking about the behavior. The behavior of Citadels is still very different to the behavior of POSes. The behavior of, entosis, the entosis mechanics is very, very different to that of both POSes and Citadels. It's all quite, all over the place, and that's why I suggested bringing a new structure in which follows the same patterns and placing that in place of the iHubs and TCUs.
Yeah, personally, I think that the way Pocos have their timers set is probably the better way than the way
Yeah,
Solos
I
currently
think
have it.
Yeah, that's
easily the best way.
100% agree with that. Yeah, being able to RF something whenever you want and providing a window for when a structure will exit reinforce is, I think, much better than, oh great, these guys have set their timer for Tuesday morning at 4 a.m. and we're in a U alliance. Great.
Now I've got to convince people to come and grind this timer at 4 a.m.
Yeah, 4 a.m. Tuesday, Wednesday, and then Tuesday again the following week.
Yeah, time zone tanking like that is not great, but it's something we've talked about. But we'll have to see if it gets bumped up the priority list.
All right, one more thing. If there's nothing else on this, balancing. Do you guys see anywhere that the game needs to be balanced as far as ships go and stuff like that?
I'll let Jin say it.
Fucking just balance everything. Just balance. Just do more balance, please, for the love of God.
Yeah, I think CCP have a tendency to either swing really hard or not, or swing like a fucking like cushion or something. They have a too far or too little type of tendency going on, and they don't do it enough. As Jin said, they just need to balance more, not less, because it seems to be like we do balance once a year and we change something astronomically crazy. So like Sweeples, bam, they were like OP for like a year and a half, and then suddenly it's like, sorry, go on, Jin.
No, I was gonna say, like, taking my memes out of that for a second. Like, my main problem with it is how the meta CCP seems to be willing to let the meta calcify. Like, they seem to be willing to let the meta revolve around one ship that is clearly the best, and that's not healthy for the game.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I've heard reasoning from them in the past that they. I don't know whether this was a lesson they learned historically, but they don't want to react to things too quickly, and so I think sometimes they just take too long to affect changes. I think there's probably a happy medium, like somewhere in the middle, something that works for them and something that works for us. I think that would be great. I mean, talking specifics, there's certain things which just don't make sense. Like T1 destroyers, why are they so slow? What's with that? It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, why does the Orpheus have more power grid than the Drake while having to fit one bus launcher?
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah. Why are assault frigates slower than regular frigates?
Supposed to be
well, assault frigates just completely useless these days.
Well, I mean, why are assault frigates slower than the command destroyers and interdictors?
Well, there's no mass in space, is there?
There is mass in space. There's no weight in space.
No weight,
please.
But it's an issue of thrusters. So I guess you could say like their engines are much bigger. Why would they go slower?
But put the science clipboard down.
I think that they take way too long to respond to very indecisive balance on their part. So there are many I would say like I forgot the word, but they've done this a lot. Like Ishtars, Drakes and Hurricanes back in 2012. Ishtars, Sweeples. It's like a recurring.
And now the Macarials.
And now it's Macarials.
Yeah, I think CCP is very hands off. I'm not sure like how frequent they want to balance. It definitely needs to be more often than now, but I think what people need to remember is that there is like when let's just say CCP made absolutions broken as fuck tomorrow, like absolutions become like the default like FC like fleet ship doctrine, right? Like first of all, you've got people who need to train into it, like people need to train command ships, a battle cruiser. Then you need logistics, like like as soon as you test the doctrine and it works, suddenly you're gonna empty JIT, and now you need like a bunch of producers to like make absolution holes to make sure you can replace them when they die. And then on top of that, you then also have like the sort of period where there's like is there counterplay? Are people gonna try void bombing them, or is there like like counters to this. And I think there needs to be like maybe a period like that, like maybe 3 to 4 months when CCP doesn't touch it. But then I think like when it's clear, okay, this is the best doctrine, the counters aren't effective enough, we need to nerf this, because it seems to me like, you know, we go through that sort of 3 to 4 month phase of, you know, like training into a hull, and you know the logistics around the hull are done, and then we've worked out that the counters aren't good enough, and then it's just left for like an extra year before it gets changed.
2 years, you mean?
I genuinely thought that was Reload talking the whole time.
Seriously? Oh my god.
That, for
You
the
can't
record,
tell the difference.
that was Sutonia, for the record. And
Like I definitely think you can balance too fast, right? Like you don't want to have a situation where, I don't know, absolutions are broken, then 30 days after they nerf them, after people have just like trained into them or something. But
Yeah.
Like what we were talking about is like, can you just do some balance changes like every 6 months? Is that okay? Can we have
yeah,
that?
6 months sounds good.
I think 6 months is pretty reasonable. Just like okay, then where are we here? And then 6 months later, okay, what happened last 6 months? What can we do now? I mean, that would be totally fine. I think 6 months is better than 2 years, or like, okay, we're going to change this, and it's been like a month. Like they just need consistency, and I'll be happy with that.
Yeah, I'd be very interested to see like what priority. Like I've talked to them on this, so I know, but I'd like them to publicly talk about what priority balancing takes, and and have a discussion with the player base on that kind of thing, because this CSM has made it kind of one of their big issues. Like myself, Mr. Hyde, Gorski, Sullen, Judge, like basically all of the CSM who fly ships, have been like, can we get some more balance changes? It doesn't, it's not like to put anything in particular here. We're not lobbying for a change. We just feel like the current pace of balance is just too slow.
Just want a bit of change in the meta.
Spice things up, Stir the pot, boys.
do you guys like the fact that faction battleships and faction ships in general are so cheap?
It's more faction battleships, and they're pretty ridiculous.
It's, the pirate stuff, not faction.
Sorry, pirates, yes.
No, the pirate, they're like, the pricing's ridiculous at the minute, especially when you look at the difference in how much they're used. I mean, at the moment, the Mac is way out on top with, like, I think the Mac is used 4 times more than any other battleship out there. But when you look at, like, the Vindy or the Barghest, I think the Vindy doesn't even scrape, like, not even 8% of the usage of the Mac in PvP. And then you compare that again to T1, and it's terrible. T1s are hardly ever used compared to pirates.
I think that's mainly because
of doctrines.
Pure down to the pure versatility of the Mac. Like, you can carry around a set of guns in there and swap them out anytime you want to. You can fit it out to be, a sort of a mid-range brawler battleship or a long-range alpha doctrine battleship. Whereas ships like the Vindicator, things like that, they generally fall into support roles in special situations. So Vindicator is very much a close-range brawling battleship for LowSec, to give you an example.
Yeah, like the Mega Navy is like combat-wise the same.
Exactly. And having a ship as flexible as the Macaro just puts it right up there on top, because people can just switch it around as and when they need it, anytime they need it to do whatever job they need it to.
All right. So my problem is going to be like, how much does the warp speed basically affect the Macarial in terms of it being the best faction pirate battleship right now? I feel it's actually quite large.
Because it's just almost as fast as cruisers, isn't it? Or as fast as cruisers.
It's as fast as T3 cruisers.
Yeah, which makes it a really versatile ship. You've got the flexibility and the speed.
Yeah, you are literally just a battleship-sized cruiser with battleship guns.
Yeah, I think you take into account the huge armor tank it can fit, the different type of guns for short and long range, the ability to have selectable damage, its agility in general, it's much more maneuverable than all the others. You take all of that into consideration, and that's why you've got such a good ship.
I
The
think
thing
it's
is
the
that
hardest
it being a
to
good
bomb.
ship isn't bad though.
It's the hardest to bomb too, right?
They are pretty difficult to bomb, yeah.
Nightmare's slightly harder, but yeah.
But I don't necessarily think it's its ability that's the biggest problem with it. And this is from somebody not from CSM. It's just how cheap they are now. Like I still remember, what was it, 2 years ago, maybe 3? A pirate faction battleship was, 800 mil a bill, quite easy straight off the bat. And now you can just go and pick one up, and it's like 300 mil,
They used to
350
be
mil.
1.2 billion for a Balgorn.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And like so a Mac is about 300 mil. You get things like the Tempest fleet and the Typhoon fleet, and they're like the same. They're about the same cost. But then your T1s are only 150 or so, 140 to 160. And like in the grand scheme of things, when you're putting together battleship doctrines for 130 mil extra, 140 mil extra, like the difference is huge.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
And
think the
that's one of the
escalation
reasons
is a huge problem
cheap
here.
battleships.
Teutonia?
Sorry, I keep talking over people. I apologize.
Teutonia starts talking, and then you jump all over him. What's wrong with you?
Sorry. Well,
It's just
I
'cause
just
he's so
posted something
nice.
interesting in the CSM, I guess, channel. But this is a service that's in Goonswarm. It's called Lucky Runners, where you contract an escalation when you get it to this corporation, and they'll give you half the cut if they end up running it. Which a lot of them, they end up not running it because of the huge volume there is. And this is just the contracts that people contract to this corp. A lot of other people, run them themselves, or they expire, or they sell them themselves to the alliance. Goonswarm are selling like we're talking about over 1,000 escalations a month here, just from this one service.
Wow.
Like since Goonswarm has been in Delve, there's been like over 7,000 run.
Wow. No wonder you guys are getting those drops.
Yeah, that's why Balgons are like 220 mil.
Yeah,
So
the
if you count the
blueprints
ones
are
that
80.
expire, there must be like at least like 2,000 Balgon BPCs like coming into the game from just that.
Yeah, it's driven the price of that blueprint down to 80 million, basically. Well, that's really low. It gets between 80 and 110. But these faction battleships, all you need is minerals to make them, so there's not a bunch of complication. It's really just the blueprint price that dictates the overall price, because the mineral prices are crashing at the same time.
Yeah, actually, an idea that I saw on the forums that I thought would be really cool is like adding some new components to the pirate BPCs that come from maybe hacking sites. Because I think the data sites, I think those need some love right now, and then that would also kind of like slow down the pirate BPC production, as well as maybe removing the drops from escalations. I think the CSB needs to do something about it.
The value of the blueprints, and this is something that, especially since the Serpentis caps were introduced, this is something that I kind of bang my head against a brick wall about quite regularly, is the Serpentis capitals are literally go along that model. They have a unique component in them, in the chips, and then they have like way more in there on the value. And then the blueprints themselves are worth jack. Whereas, and that really, really frustrates me, because in historically, it's always been because of the rarity of the blueprints. That's what caused the price thing. But when the people were going out and doing the PvE to find them, was even better, because when they got the drop, even if it was a rarer drop, it was a more rewarding drop. So I don't know. I honestly still think it's just the pure proliferation of them from the tweaks of the loot tables that have been done over the last 2 years has done it. And I can't.
It wasn't the tweaks to the loot tables; it was the tweaks to the spawn rates of the escalations.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think also on top of the spawn rates of the escalation, you've got to also take into account the Citadel changes to capitals, which, with the new supers and the new carriers running, in a carrier you can run like 7 havens/sanctums an hour, and in a super you can run between 14 and 16 an hour, and the average I think escalation chance is roughly 5 to 6% based on statistics we have in Goonswarm.
Yeah, so that needs to start getting nuked, like, quite hard.
Well, that's
Yeah.
one thing that I talked about in an article a while ago was that capitals seem to be, and even super capitals, seem to kind of, when they were redesigned, look like subcapitals, but just big. And it looks like that's happened in PvP because they're now maneuverable and you actually fight with them by aiming and stuff like that. But also in PvE, where they're used a lot more now, it seems, doing this PvE stuff and just gaining ISK and doing stuff like that. Do you think that was a good move, or is this kind of like now put supers in competition with their smaller things instead of separating their gameplay in half into 2 different parts?
I'm not sure on that one really.
I think it's good that people are like out in space in carriers and capitals and doing stuff, but I think that CCP needs to like readjust the escalation rate again.
Yeah.
because it
I
was
think the thing
created
is that,
before. It was changed before Supercaps were changed.
Yeah, I think you've just got to be careful, like how close you start bringing them, because I mean, at the minute you've got T1 battleships sitting at like 150 mil ish, and you've got the faction ones at about 300, like roughly. Pirates around the same for like the normal ones. Obviously there are some that are different, like the Barghest. That's kind of an outlier, really. But you got to be careful, I think, how much you try and through other means increase that cost to the person who ends up with it at the end of the day. If you take them to like 700 mil, that's half the price of a carrier. Because carriers are cheap nowadays.
Yeah.
I just think you got to be careful how close you get.
So it may not go back up to 1.2 billion.
No, I mean, I don't know, just picking numbers out of the air. I'd be happy with T1 at 150, Faction at 300, and Pirates at 5 to 600.
Yeah. Well, the Rattlesnake is also up there. I think it's selling around that spot. Barghest is even higher than that. Vindicator is a bit lower than the Rattlesnake. And then rock bottom is really the Balgorn, probably because it's being overdone by all the people in Delve, right? Who are having
it's fun to fuck.
Yeah, and also Nightmare is pretty cheap, I guess, because there's 2 sources for it. But it gets used a lot more than the Balgorn. But it's amazing to me that the Macarial blueprint is like at 140 to 160 million that I've seen, and they're being used so much. You'd think that the demand would outpace the supply.
If you check Macarials in Jita, the volume traded is more than every Tech 1 Mimitar battleship combined, on top of every Navy battleship combined.
Oh my god.
Like I said, like there's so many BPCs coming onto the market from escalations that you can whelp 200 max a day and it won't make a difference to the Jitter market.
My god.
Yeah, it's just like default. The thing is with them is you can go non-slaved in nullsec and they're cheap and you have massive alpha for very large blob fleets. You'll get huge alpha out of them, or you can go slaved in low sec and get very, very, very tanky ships for like the smaller groups that can't get the numbers.
But why is there so much supply?
Oh, it's from the escalations that we've been talking about, because
So in the north,
when you run a Sanctum and a Haven, you get a small chance to get an escalation to a 10 out of 10 plex. The carriers and super carriers are mostly running Sanctums and Havens right now. So with the Citadel changes and the escalation boost, I think CCP did in like November 2015. There's so many blueprint copies coming onto the market from those escalations that essentially that they're so cheap now.
But I mean, that tells me that people are ratting just as hard in the north as they are in Delve.
Yeah, I mean, there's many sources for it. I mean, a lot of the Angel space has been rented out in the past before CO2 has sort of taken over Impasse. I think kids, what they call kids with guns or something in Omist, have been like renting that region hardcore.
They
okay. It's
basically
Angel
just
space.
pay money to anyone who's nearby that looks scary, and they leave them alone and pretend they're not renters.
Sorry, so Minmatar spaces and Angel spaces where all this stuff gets. Yeah, okay, that makes more sense because they've been at it a while too. So.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I guess that does it. You guys are awesome. We can go another 2 hours, but I got to go. And
No.
anything you guys want to? I'll give you all a chance to say anything you want to do. Is if you have any. I wouldn't say parting comments or anything like that, but do we have like a
Shout-outs. Shout-outs.
Shout-outs? I don't know. Because it seems like it's been informal, so to say, like, please vote for me seems really dumb, but also...
Just do it anyway, because it'll be great.
Yeah,
definitely vote for me. Definitely vote for Wild.
Okay, do it. Go ahead.
You see, look, they're all biting the chop to tip.
I'll do it for
Nobody
Satoma.
really knows who I am, but vote for me.
Well, I know who
Involve
you
yourself
are.
in space democracy. Fucking do it. Involve yourself in space democracy. Fucking exercise your citizen duty.
Just vote. Remember to vote, if anything.
Yeah, well...
Hashtag
Thanks.
it starts next Monday.
Thanks, guys, and good luck to all you guys. And I guess we shall see, right? Tuesday, and then at FanFest, you guys will hear the announcement.
Provi block, best block.
Wear your diapers.
I hope, Jintan, you're in training. Your liver's in training for FanFest, mate. Not going to be carting you around the streets in the middle of the night again.
Is someone carrying a bin?
He's light. All right. We'll see you guys. Thanks.
That's the only saving grace.